How would you describe seeing?
Seeing is, it's not difficult to explain from a seer's perspective, but it's exceedingly difficult to explain to somebody who doesn't see. Quite literally what happens in seeing, it is a direct and instantaneous knowing of what is actually happening. If it is a person that you're seeing, it's a complete identification with that person in the sense that for that moment in which you see where that person is at, you quite literally, momentarily become that person. In other words, that person's thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, everything about that is for that moment of seeing, it is like it's yours.
And was this part of your training, of your restoration of your memory that started to happen for you?
Indeed. I didn't have it as a young child. I didn't have the ability to see. I was very sensitive and I was very intuitive. But I have no conscious recollection of being able to see as a child. But once I started with the restoration of my memory, then I started to see.
Yes. And being in your 20s, and your life must have changed completely. How did you start to see things differently, just from a day-to-day basis?
Oh, Elizabeth, it changed astronomically. It literally, for me at the time, it felt like my life had been turned completely on its head. So much so that I found I just couldn't approach life in the same way as I did before. And that had devastating results within my life. One example was I suddenly found myself devoid of any friends, because all the many people that had claimed to be my friends up until that point of time, they in themselves found that I had changed so dramatically and so much that more than one of them said to me, "What happened to you? You're just not the same person that we used to know." I felt, of course, from my side, that I was just being more real. But quite frankly, it upset them to such an extent that, yeah, as I said, within a space of about 8 months, I found myself without any friends whatsoever. Until, of course, I learned, with my new experience, how to build new relationships and new friendships. But no, it had a huge impact, astronomical impact upon my life. Everything changed dramatically from that moment on.
At some point in time, was it round about then that you were given the role or the title of Nahal, or did that come as part of the restoration of your memory?
Yes, the term Nahal.
What is this? What does it mean?
The term Nahal, quite literally, it means spirit. But I must explain that, because again, that's so easy to misunderstand. It is not that a physical being like myself is the spirit of man, but it is more that a Nahal being, which is more accurate than just simply saying Nahal. A Nahal being is, through his very essence, through his very nature, he clearly reflects, very clearly reflects, more so than anybody else who's not Nahal, the very essence of what it is to be true spirit. And in this case, we must remember that we all have the spirit within us. That is our true selves. That is the self which is busy evolving its awareness from lifetime to lifetime through our destiny. That is the true self, the spirit. And we all have that within ourselves. So really what is called a Nahal being is the being that reflects for us most clearly where each and every one of us is at in our own particular evolution of awareness. That's the real meaning of Nahal. Again, it's a word, because of the Mesoamerican influence, has become horrendously distorted. I believe some people even now call it a holy man. But that just shows the distortion of what the Nahal really is.
As I understood you shared that far from being a holy man, a Nahal being is a being that best reflects for us where our spirit is that at any point in time. Am I correct in how I've defined now?
Yes, undoubtedly. Because you must realize that we can't have gaps in our knowledge. So we have to go through all sorts of experiences, which is why I find the term holy man rather funny.
How did you find out that this was to be your role in this lifetime?
Well, that really came about as a result of the restoration of my memory.
And what did it mean for you? What did it mean for you to find out that this was your role? You were still fairly early on in your age, in your life, weren't you? Age-wise.
Yeah, true. To tell you the honest truth, I freaked out. I couldn't imagine how I was ever going to fulfill this role. And especially as I restored more and more of my memory and I began to understand more and more where humanity is really at. So, unfortunately, I'm not, or perhaps fortunately, I'm not one of those people that look upon being null as being very glamorous or being very holy and sitting in some safe place and telling people, peace, brother. For me, it is literally having to roll up the sleeves and do some very hard work at helping people to sort out the problems in their lives. But as my memory was restored and I started to see where humanity is at, it was quite shocking for me to realize that where humanity is at today, and to really be able to help people in a meaningful way. By meaningful, I mean really being able to change their lives, is actually a huge challenge. Which is why I said, the more I started to see what a challenge it is, the more I freaked out. So far from being very enamored with the idea that I'm null, quite frankly, I didn't like it at all.
There's a huge responsibility that comes with this role.
Absolutely.
How did your parents, your childhood, your careers up until that point, how did they prepare you for this role, if at all?
Elizabeth, amazingly so. I actually started my career off in the theatre. I actually became a professional dancer, classical dancer. I also studied Spanish dance, as well as folk dancing, or what is better known as national dancing, which really entails the national dances of Europe, Eastern Europe, as well as Russia. And really, my experience in the theatre was an unbelievable experience. I started off in the theatre because I've always been drawn to the performing arts. I suppose why I was drawn to the performing arts was, once again, not so much the glamour of being on stage, but it's that wonderful opportunity of being able to go out onto that stage and give the audience your everything. So, although there are many performers that become performers simply because they enjoy the limelight, if you like, and they enjoy the applause and the flowers and everything that comes afterwards. For me, it never was about that. It was about what I saw as the marvelous privilege of, number one, being able to give full expression to yourself, and in that expressing yourself, being able to touch people's hearts, to give them something of what I see as the beauty of life. And that is what really attracted me. So, in that respect, my years in the theatre was wonderful preparation for the work I'm doing now.